Hi everyone. So today we're going to have a think about time. So converting with seconds, minutes, hours, days, and go through a few more as well. Brilliant. So really important. Apologies. I'm just trying to make sure I can see all your messages. Ah, okay, it's really important that you're happy with how to convert between minutes, seconds, minutes, and hours, basically, right? And you probably already have an idea of these. I imagine you've done them before. Brilliant. So, a minute, 60 seconds, an hour, 60 minutes, 24 hours is a day. So, these ones are super, super, super important. Really good to make sure you're happy with those. You probably have come across this a lot before, as I said, but actually, this conversion here has some knock-on effects that you might not be really thinking about when it comes to converting minutes into fractions of hours that people can sometimes get a little bit confused about. Um, and probably again, as I'm mentioning them here, you'll be like, yeah, I know that. 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. Yeah, that makes sense, right? And a quarter could be written like this, or it could be written like this, just like we've talked about before when we talked about fractions and decimals. However, this means that 15 minutes, so the 15 doesn't doesn't come up at all when we think about quarter of an hour as a decimal. 0.25. A lot of people fall into the trap of thinking, that must be 25 minutes, right? Or something like that, or thinking that 15 minutes is 0.15 hours, whereas it's not. So I suspect a lot of you will be quite confident with these conversions and quite confident with these, but it's really important that we're then making sure that we apply these ideas as we're doing more difficult conversions as well. So just a little quick heads up about that. So 30 minutes, half an hour. Again, you're probably aware of that. We could write that as a half like this, or 0.5, as we've talked about before. 45 minutes, that's 3/4 of an hour, which we could write like a fraction or like a decimal. Again, be really careful with this. 45 minutes is not 0.45 hours. That would be less than half an hour, less than 0.5 hours. It's actually 0.75 hours. And 0.75 hours is not 75 minutes or anything like that. Because we're so used to, because of the units we talked about last time, the metric units, we're so used to timesing and dividing by tens and hundreds and thousands that sometimes it's easy for our brain just to slip back into that mode. So let's be really careful about that just in case, because this could certainly come up. Other things that are important to know, but we're not going to go through in too much detail today, is that 1 week is 7 days. Again, I think you'll be pretty confident with that. A year is 12 months, and it's also 365 days. Okay, that's one that people sometimes need reminding of. And a decade, so dec means 10. So a decade is 10 years, and a century, we've talked already about cent when it comes to things like centimeters, the centi prefix. A century is 100 years. Okay, so these would be really, really good to learn. Any of these that you don't already know, just make sure that you feel confident with them. Excellent. So, like I said before, we need to be really careful because we're working in 60s, not hundreds. Um, and sometimes that can cause trouble. Um, let's have a go together at converting some numbers of hours into minutes, including some of these decimal ones that could be a little bit trickier. So you certainly need to be confident with halves, quarters, 3/4 of hours as a minimum. So 2 hours into minutes, just like we were doing last week. If you're not sure, start with 1 hour. So 1 hour equals 60 minutes. You could just start by writing that down on your sheet of paper. So that means 2 hours. 2 hours is 2 lots of 1 hour. So it's going to be 2 lots of 60 minutes. It's going to be 120 minutes. Again, you're probably a little bit more used to this than some of the decimals because we do this in day-to-day life sometimes, these kinds of conversions. But notice it doesn't look anything like, it's not 200 minutes or anything like that. It doesn't really look like a 2. It's quite different because it's 2 lots of 60. 4 hours into minutes, that's going to be 4 lots of 60 minutes, isn't it? So 240 minutes. And remember, if you want to times 60 by something, you can times by 6 and then times by 10 at the end. So I know that 4 times 6 is 24, so 4 times 60 is 240. All right. Oh, what about this one? 1 hour and a quarter into minutes. If you have your own method for this, that's cool. If not, though, I will describe my method that I think works quite well. I'm going to break this up into 1 whole hour and the quarter of an hour. Okay, so 1 hour I know is 60 minutes. We said that just before. And then what about a quarter of an hour? So we said earlier on that a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. And I know we don't always use analog time as much as we used to. We don't use analog clocks that much. But if you're not very familiar with the idea of a quarter of an hour being 15 minutes, I really would recommend you learning that, as we showed on the first page. Then we can add these together. So that's going to be 75 minutes. What about this one? 3.5 hours into minutes. Well, 3.5 hours. My brain automatically read that as 3.5 because that's what it is, right? And I would really recommend trying to think of decimals, trying to convert them into fractions when you're working with time. Yeah, and in terms of functional skills, we really want to be focusing on halves, quarters, and 3/4, okay? That's a really good starting point. So we've got 3 hours, that's 3 lots of 60. So I know 3 times 6 is 18, so 3 times 60 must be 180. And then we've got 0.5, half an hour, so that's going to be a 30. So in total, that's 210 minutes. What about this one? 2.25 hours into minutes. Well, that's 2 hours. That's 120 minutes, which we said earlier. And then this 0.25. The 0.25 bit is a quarter, isn't it? So a quarter of an hour. I'm going to think to myself, what's a quarter of an hour in minutes? It's 15 minutes. So that's where we get 135 minutes from. And then we can convert minutes into seconds in exactly the same way because the conversion's the same. So 1 minute, if I'm converting minutes into seconds, 1 minute is 60 seconds. Just like 1 hour is 60 minutes. So 3 minutes is going to be 3 lots of 60 seconds. So again, that's going to be 180 seconds. So make sure you're confident with that. 10 minutes into seconds. Well, if 1 minute is 60 seconds, 10 lots of that, 10 minutes, is going to be 10 lots of 60 seconds. So that's going to be 600 seconds. Wow. Brilliant. So hopefully if you follow these methods, you're not going to get caught out by the 60s, right? Really, really important. With these questions, it's like we're going in the other direction. We're thinking about how many lots of 60 there are in, say, 120. Because we know 60 seconds is 1 minute. So there's 160 in 120, that's 1 minute. And then there's another 60 because 2 lots of 60 are 120. So we can think of this the way I'm thinking about how many lots of 60 are in 120. It's like a division kind of question. But it's perhaps easier if you don't have a calculator for a question, if it's a non-calculator question, to think of it as groups of 60. And one nice way to quickly write out your 60 times tables, for example, would be to write out your sixes. And this links up to what I was saying before. Write out your sixes and then add zeros on the end. Times them by 10. So 60, 120, 180. So I know 120, that's 2 lots of 60. So it must be 2 minutes. Ooh, 300 seconds. Well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots of 60. So that must be 5 minutes. Make sense? And you can use exactly the same list there, exactly the same multiples there, the multiples of 60 for turning minutes into hours. 60 minutes into hours, that's 1 hour, isn't it? It's one lot of 60. 180, 1, 2, 3, that's 3 hours. Okay. And then we have some that aren't on the list. So what do we need to do here? Well, we've got 90 minutes into hours here. Well, we've got 60. If we think about how many 60s are in 90, we've got one lot of 60. So that makes 1 whole hour. And then we've got how much left? We've got 1 hour and then we've got 30 minutes left. Ah, so it's 1 hour and a half, isn't it? So we could write it as 1 hour and a half or 1.5 hours. Yeah? What about this one? 45 minutes into well, 45, it's here, it's before any hours. It's less than an hour. So what would we do there? Well, 45 minutes I know is 3/4 of an hour. So I could say it's 3/4 of an hour. Or if I was asked for the answer as a decimal, 0.75. Yeah, 0.75 hours. And then 75 minutes into hours. Again, we're thinking how many lots of 60 are there in 75? There's only one, isn't there? Because we go from 60 straight to 120 when we think about our 60 times tables. So it's only 1 hour, and then there's something left over. What's left over? And if I think about what 75 take away 60 is, that's a good way of thinking about what is left over. There's 15 minutes left over. What fraction of an hour is 15 minutes? It's a quarter. So 1 hour and a quarter, or 1.25 hours. So hopefully that's helped a little bit. I know this is something that can be quite tricky at first, but the more you practice it and the more you try and practice it in everyday situations as well, maybe when you're thinking about how long a TV program lasts or something like that, see if you can do these conversions. So the other thing, so a couple more things, we've got turning hours into days or days into hours. Remember, one day is 24 hours. When we when we talk about a day, normally we don't literally mean a day, like the daytime. We mean a day and a night, a whole day and night until we get back to the same time on the next day, right? So a day we say is 24 hours. So 2 days is going to be 2 lots of 24 hours. It's going to be 48 hours. Oh, let me show you another little trick. Okay, this is a little bit trickier. Actually, there's 2 ways you can come up with your 24 times tables. One is to write down your 12s and then leapfrog over every other answer. So if I were to write down my 12 times tables, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, so it'd be 72. My 24s are this one, this one, this one. It's every other answer to the 12s. And I think time is probably why we put so much focus on going up to our 12 times tables. Because it can be quite handy for time. Or let me show you another way, a way that can get us a little bit further as well. And this actually works for any times tables, any multiples you might need. So we're talking about the 24s, right? Well, 24, let's partition it. It's a 20 plus a 4. 20 add 4 is 24. So let's think about our 20 times tables, and I'm going to go downwards. I'm not going to get distracted by the 4s at the moment, because if you're switching back and forward between these two different tasks, it's not as efficient, and we can go wrong more easily. So I'm going to focus on the 20s for now. The 20s are like the 2s, aren't they? But with a 0 on the end. So we've got 40, 60, 80, 100, 20, 140. That looks good. And I could keep going. That would be no trouble. What about my 4s? What are the 4 times tables? So I've switched onto the second thing now. 4, 8, 12, 16. Then we've got 20, 24. And sometimes my mind goes blank just like anyone else's, right? Don't worry if your mind goes blank. Just give yourself a few seconds, take a deep breath, or think about some other strategies you could use, like maybe counting up for each time for some of the harder bits. Then, once we've done that, we're going to add going across. So 20 add 4, 24. 40 add 8, 48. 60 add 12, that's 72. And you should find these additions aren't usually that difficult because you've got a lot of zeros involved in the numbers. 144, 168, trying to make sure I get it right and pay enough attention to it. But that can be a really, really nice strategy to write out a times table. And in these sorts of questions, the 24s are the important ones, right? When we're thinking about days and hours. So 2 days into hours, that's going to be the second number in the 24 times table list. 4 days, that's going to be the fourth number. That must be 96 hours. Half a day. Ooh, okay, half a day. Well, 24 is a whole day. So half a day, that's going to be half of 24. That's going to be 12 hours. What about 24 hours into days? That's just one day, isn't it? We can also use it when we're going in the other direction, right? So 24 hours, that's one lot of 24. So it must be one day. 72 hours, that's 1, 2, 3 lots of 24. So it must be 3 days. 120 hours, ooh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. 12 hours, oh, that's less than a day. And we know 12 is half of 24. So we could say that's 0.5 days. Okay. Any questions about that? Fantastic. And you can always get in touch with me on social media if you have any questions. I'll do my best to help, and I can also make sure we cover any questions you have in another class, which would be fantastic. Brilliant. So finally, let's have a think about some real world questions. And this is the kind of thing that you could try and do a little bit of practice at just in your everyday life. So a recipe says to bake a cake for 1.25 hours. Gosh, this would be a confusing recipe, wouldn't it? Because it's kind of confusing when you put hours as decimals. But it's really good for us to start getting used to seeing that, just so that we're able to interpret it. So 1.25 hours, that 1.25 is 1 1/4, isn't it? So let's reinterpret that. How many minutes is it? Well, 1 hour is 60 minutes, and a quarter of an hour we've said is 15 minutes. So that's going to be 75 minutes. Hey, that's much better. I could much more easily wait 75 minutes for my cake to bake than trying to wonder about what 0.25 hours is once it's been in for an hour. So it's so important that we can do this. Okay, Joy practices maths for 40 minutes in the morning and 1 hour 20 minutes in the afternoon. How many hours did she spend practicing all together? Okay, I think for this question, I'm going to add up the minutes and the hours. I'm going to add up the minutes and the hours separately, and then I'm going to convert it all to hours because I'm not sure how many hours are in 40 minutes or how many hours are in 20 minutes. I've not learned that. But 20 add 40, I know is 60. So we've got 1 hour And we've got an extra 60 minutes. So can we convert all of that into hours now? Well, 60 minutes is just another hour, isn't it? So it's like 1 hour adds another hour. So that's 2 hours. Hopefully that makes sense. Brilliant. Alan runs for 30 minutes and then walks for 1.25 hours. How many minutes did he spend exercising? So as long as we're assuming that the walking and the running are both counted as exercising, I think they are. So we've got 30 minutes. Oh, and they're wanting it in minutes. So because this is completely in hours, I'm going to be starting to think about how I could convert all of this into minutes. So we've got 30 minutes that he ran for, and we've got 1.25 hours that he walked for. So what is that? How can I interpret that in minutes? Well, first of all, this 0.25 hours, a little bit strange. 0.25 is a quarter, isn't it? Like 25% is a quarter. So this is 1 hour and a quarter. We could even write it like that to start with. So we've got 1 hour and a quarter of an hour. In other words, 1 hour and 15 minutes. So now we can add on the 30 minutes. That makes it much easier. So we've got 1 hour and 30 minutes add 15 minutes. That's 45 minutes. And then we need to think about, does this need to be answered in minutes or hours, or could it be either, or a kind of combination unit, which we have here, which sometimes comes up. We've actually been asked for our answer in minutes though, haven't we? So let's convert all of this into minutes. Well, the 45 minutes part is already in minutes. Let's write that down. And what about the 1 hour? Well, 1 hour is 60 minutes, isn't it? So 45 add 60. That's going to give us 105 minutes. And the last question. A music video is 2.75 minutes long. How many seconds is this all together? So I know we've talked about this more when it comes to hours and minutes, but we can do a very similar thing when it comes to minutes and seconds. So this is 2 minutes and 0.75, that's 3/4 of a minute. So 2 minutes and 3/4. So how many seconds are in 2 minutes? That's 2 lots of 60. If I were to go back to my 60 list of 60 times tables, it would be 120 seconds. And then 3/4 of a minute, a bit like 3/4 of an hour is 45 minutes, 3/4 of a minute is 45 seconds. So if you need to, you can do the same thing with seconds and minutes. So really important that you're confident with hours, but have a little think about seconds and minutes as well, if you'd like to. Add these up and we get 165 seconds. This is super helpful because sometimes as you're maybe streaming to YouTube or as you're recording videos, any of you who might be interested in things like media, you often see the amount of time in seconds rather than in minutes. So being able to convert between them is super, super helpful. So great to have a think about that if you can. Fantastic. So as usual, I've left you a few questions to have a go with over the week. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.